Hello friends, welcome to the video. So today we are not going to be making soap, we're going to delve into a different project. I started sewing during the panoramic because I had a sewing machine that I'd never bothered to learn how to use and an abundance of free time. So I started a bunch of projects, one being a t-shirt quilt. I'm a huge fan of t-shirts. I'll get a t-shirt anywhere I go. It's one of my favorite souvenirs. But over time, I noticed I was accumulating a lot of t-shirts that I wasn't wearing anymore. And for some reason, I'm super sentimental when it comes to clothing, and I wasn't ready to say goodbye to a lot of these shirts. But I also wasn't wearing them, they're just taking up space. So the option was break my own heart and throw them away or take them to the Goodwill or something like that. Or I could repurpose them into something that I could have and still keep and still have all the memories. So I started a t-shirt quilt. I made it most of the way through, making the quilted portion of it, so all the different t-shirt designs. Ran out of t-shirts. I wanted to be a little bit bigger and I just didn't have anything else to cut up at the time. So in true me fashion, I folded it up, put it somewhere nice and safe, and forgot about it for 3 years. I was doing a closet purge the other day, and I was pulling out all these t-shirts. I'm like, man, I don't wear these. I hate to get rid of them. I really like them. Oh, wait. And I pulled the quilt that I had made so far out from the tub that was underneath my bed, and this is what I've got so far. Some of these were things that I had made for myself on vacation. A lot of them are Loot Crate t-shirts that I wore for a little bit, didn't like the cut or grew out of them, or they shrank in the wash. So I have a bunch of these t-shirts and I cut them up a little bit, sewed them together, not well, but well enough for the purpose. So today we are going to make the last row, sew it together, and then go to the craft store and get the rest of the stuff to turn this from a bunch of sewn together t-shirts into an actual blanket. The last 4 shirts I'm going to be using, because it's going to be 4 across, 5 down. Little Irish Pride t-shirt that a friend gave me that's too big, don't wear it. This guy is inside out. One of my favorite Hot Topic finds, I think. A friend's mom ended up getting this for me, but like a little Adventure Time, Death and Bloom. This was one that I would been super apprehensive about getting rid of. Me and my dad, when I was home from work for vacation, we went to Disneyland together just because we're adults and we can do that whenever we want. And it was right before they were getting rid of the Tower of Terror. So I got one of these bad boys. This is the one that I'm scared the most because I don't want to accidentally ruin it. It's gonna be fine. And then this last one, a friend of mine got for me. Knitting. I'm not a cap sleeve girly, so that's why I don't wear this one very often, but I really like the design, so we're gonna cut it up and turn it into something that I can keep for years now. The squares that I made are 12-inch by 12-inch squares with a 1/4-inch seam allowance all the way around. So I'm gonna cut up these t-shirts real quick, come back and show you what I got, and then we'll head upstairs and start sewing them together. So we're gonna start off with the one that I'm most nervous with, just to get it out of the way. And laying this out, I can see that I'm already gonna have some choices to make. Grab my needles from over here. This design is bigger than a 12-inch square. So I kind of have to cut my losses, as it were, as far as what I'm actually gonna keep from the image. So I can either keep the, final checkout, or I can keep the year at the top. I feel like I can remember the year pretty well enough on my own. So I'm going to keep the final checkout portion just because, that was the whole vibe of the ride at the time, and everything that was set up as they were getting ready to close the hotel. So for this, I'm just going to move this around, make sure, scoot it up a little bit, make sure I'm pretty much squared even on it. And then I'm going to take just some regular needles to save myself a little bit of sanity. I'm going to go through both layers of the t-shirt and come back up and bam. So we got that nice and anchored down. I'll do all 4 corners and then some in-betweens just so the t-shirt doesn't move around too much. Now that I've got it all marked off, I just grab my fabric scissors and cross the fingers. And we have the moment of truth. And there we go. And it's okay if it's a little raggedy on the edges. You can go back through and clean it up a little bit. This is going to have that 1/4 inch seam allowance, so some of the jaggedy bits aren't going to show. And luckily, this is designed to look incredibly homemade, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And the process for cutting these up are going to be the same for every square, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here when it's done. All right, so we got these all cut up, so we need to pin them together now and sew them together. So our next step is going to be pinning these together, side by side, just like this. And then once we're done with that, we'll head behind me to the sewing machine and get everything sewn in place. After I got that row sewn together, I just went ahead and did the same thing and attached it to the big portion, trying to keep these top and bottom seams lined up as much as possible. I mean, it's t-shirt material. I'm cutting this with a pair of fabric scissors, not a rotary tool. It's not going to be perfect. I'm not expecting it to be perfect, but my big thing is I wanted to have this edge and this edge lined up as much as possible to try to square off the whole thing as much as I can. So we're going to take this back to the sewing machine and get the front of it finished up. Alrighty, so we got that strip sewn on to the larger portion. Not creative liberties. We'll call them creative liberties we're taking. But now that this is all stitched together, I need to run to the craft store to get the backing and the material that is going to be the back of the quilt and the binding. Alright, so I am in the parking lot of the craft store. I need to go in and get backing, batting, and binding. Only those 3 things. Backing, batting, binding. And ideally nothing else. We'll see if that works out. So I did pretty okay at the craft store. I got 2 yards of 90-inch batting, which is probably going to be way too much. I got 2 yards of this pretty blue 108-inch fabric for the backing and the binding. Even using it for both, this was probably way too much. And then I know I said I was only going to get the 3 things, but they were on sale. So to help me with this, I invested in a rotary cutter and a quilting ruler kind of thing for the rotary cutter. So I got everything else that I'm going to need for this project, hopefully. I overbought everything, so it should be enough, but I am late for D&D, so we're going to finish this up tomorrow. I didn't think to film this part because in my mind, for some reason, I didn't think it was going to take long enough for it to matter. After having finally completed this, it took like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours to pin the top of the quilt down to the batting and the backing. Hindsight being what it is, I probably shouldn't have done it on carpet. It's fine though. It's covered in cat hair, but it is fine. And I think it is ready to go to the sewing machine for a first round of stitching. Alright, so I just finished all the vertical lines and now I'm going to go through and do the horizontal. 3 years ago, me must have known that this was going to take forever and that's why it ended up under the bed. But, I mean, it's lumpy, it's bumpy. My sewing lines are about as straight as the squares that I cut out, which is understandable, but it's not looking half bad. Like, I'm getting a little excited. I think it's going to be okay. It's gonna be good. All right. Another hour of sewing. Alrighty, so I finished the top stitching. Back hurts so bad. Like I said, it didn't exactly come out perfect. Hello. The back of it. The back actually looks better than the front because it's so dark it covers up the thread. I'm very tired, but now I have to figure out how to make binding. Luckily, I was very correct. I got way too much of that fabric, so it shouldn't be an issue. I just have to do it. I'm at least going to go start it tonight, but that's probably going to be a tomorrow issue. Okay, so I've got the top, the batting, and the backing all sewn together. I have that sitting upstairs. Now it's time to make the binding. I'm going to be doing a 2.5-inch binding just so I have plenty of room to make so many mistakes. Went ahead and invested in a rotary cutter, a ruler thing, and then one of those really neat cutting mats. So hopefully this shouldn't be too difficult, though I do anticipate it being time consuming. The quilt as it stands is 56 by 46. I'm just going to round both those numbers up to 60 and 50, so I will need 220 inches of binding. I'm going to go ahead and make 230 because I know you have to fold around the corners. So like I said, this should be simple enough. I have the bottom edge of the fabric squared up with the cutting mat, and I have this moved over to 2.5 inches. And I feel like I'm doing this backwards, but we're going to go ahead and go for it. Actually, let's scooch this up a tiny bit so we can get everything. Oh, and I'm already messing it up. It's gotta be a better way to do this. Ta-da! See how long this actually is. This is 37 inches, so I'll need 5 or 6 more of these. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the camera for this and listen to my audiobook because it's gonna be about as exciting as that last bit was. and there's really no point in all of us suffering through it, so I'll be right back. All right, so now that I have all of the binding cut, I need to join all the pieces together to make it one long strip. To do this, you just lay the fabric over itself, pin it together, and then sew at a 45-degree angle, so when you open it up, it's gonna have like a little slant, but it's gonna be one long continuous piece. And to do that, we just have the fabric laid over itself, gave myself a little room on either edge, so I'm not sewing like edge to edge. There's gonna be a little bit of play for it. You take pin, and just pin it together. And that way when you sew it and open it back up, it'll lay like that at a 45-degree angle. You are going to be able to see the seams. I am told it is a normal part of quilt making. So I'm going to pin everything together, take it over to the sewing machine, sew it up, and I'll meet you back here. This is the part of the video where I didn't realize my microphone had died. All I'm saying is, hey, here's it sewn together. This is what it looks like. And we just do it a bunch more times. So I have the binding all stitched down to the top. Got to do a little bit of trim work just to clean it up around the edges, then fold it over and pin it down and stitch it to the back. There it is. It's done. It's finally done. I've got a couple of places I have to go back and hand stitch it because I missed it with the sewing machine, but otherwise, project completed. This is something that I had been meaning to do for a really long time, but I put off for a really long time because I'm not a quilter. I don't know how to do this. I mean, is it perfect? No. Is it covered in cat hair? Completely. Do I love it though? Absolutely. It was a lot of fun to make, and I'm happy that I finally buckled down, did like the minutest amount of research to figure out what I had to do, and it's done. And it was fun. And I hope you had fun finishing this long overdue project with me, and I will catch you for the next video.